Welcome to Creating Flow, the podcast where I, Joni Francisco, hope to empower women, helpers, and healers to unblock their energy and unlock their power. We are tackling that tough reality that many in the healing professions often sacrifice their well-being in the pursuit of helping others. Not only do I think this is just plain wrong, it ends up draining their vitality and diminishing their ability to serve. I've experienced this struggle firsthand and emerged with insights and strategies to break this cycle. That's why each week we explore practical methods not only to replenish your energy, but also cultivate abundance in your life. You'll gain actionable steps to fill your cup first, ensuring you can overflow with energy and serve others without burning out. Hey there, today we are going to get real about something that impacts everything: your health, your business, your relationships, and your overall quality of life. And that's something we're going to talk about today is the chakras. And now before you roll your eyes thinking this is another fluffy woo-woo conversation, stick with me. Because what I'm about to break down is practical and it will transform your life. But first, I'd like to invite you into my Abundance and Flow community and school, where you'll find free, awesome AF trainings in there. And we are building a community of other helpers and healers ready to have more abundance and flow in their lives. Let's journey together towards freedom in life, health, and business. The link to join is in the show notes, and I hope to see you there. Let's make this practical, shall we? Have you ever found yourself saying, I don't know why I'm still tired, or I don't know why I'm tired all the time? Or I keep repeating the same patterns in my relationships. Or maybe you're the person that has these weird physical symptoms that don't seem to make sense and no doctor really has the answer. If any of those questions run through your mind, then friend, this episode is for you. Now, you've probably heard about chakras and heard the word before, but what does it really mean? Today, we'll be grounding that woo into the science and discussing how chakra imbalances show up physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. What this looks like in your health, your life, your business, and your relationship, and understand that these symptoms are really sacred messages from our body and from our spirit, and how you can start decoding them to move forward in those places in life that you're feeling stuck or frustrated or just plain tired of it, right? I'm going to be guiding you chakra by chakra, energy center by energy center, and then I'll take you into a balancing meditation exercise. So if you're driving, I do want to remind you that if you're driving, don't close your eyes, right? Or anything else that you shouldn't close your eyes on. However, if that is the only time that you get to listen quietly, then just listen. So the way energy works, the way mind shift works, the way we can alchemize things is best done quietly and is best done in a place where you can really focus and go inside. However, sometimes with busy minds, or just sometimes when that's the only time we have, remember that it's still working. So as I speak you through the meditation, and if you're able just to even drop in a little bit more into your body, this will start to process for you. So let's dive in. What does chakra mean? Chakra is actually a word from Sanskrit, and it literally means wheel or disc. So we can think of these chakras as spinning energy centers in your body, and these act like portals for your physical experience and your energetic blueprint. We have 7 of them from our pelvis to the top of our head. We have many other chakras and nadis in our body, but these are the 7 main ones that we're going to talk about today. They're associated with this. Each chakra has a certain area of the body that it is associated with, and they're also developmentally staged in order, and they all have a theme of consciousness. And by that, I mean safety, truth, intuition. And we're going to go over how that shows up for you in your life and what that looks like in everyday operation. You can think of these chakras as we think of these energy spinning in our body. The reminder, too, I think we often think of them coming energy in the front of our body, but to remember that this is really a center of energy that's 360 degrees around us. So it shines from the front, it shines from the back, and even out your sides, right? So it's really that whole area of your body in 360. And here's something really cool, especially for those that you really appreciate the science and you really appreciate the understanding of how the energy works. Each of these chakras are based over our nervous system, where we have nervous plexuses and endocrine glands. And so again, it's kind of that bridge between our physical body and our energetic body. However, where there is the most energy from our nervous system or our endocrine glands, there's also the most energy center around the chakra. I'm going to use the Western names for these as we go through. Primarily, it's easiest for me to speak, but it'll also be easiest for you to understand because you won't be trying to, listen to the word. And if you know what it is, that's awesome too. But the root chakra is at the base of the spine. And this is below your pelvis, top of your legs. And what is here for the nervous system is where our coccygeal plexus comes in, our pelvic nerves, and the seat of what we feel is our sympathetic nervous system. This really regulates that fight or flight and adrenal glands. The chakra starts to form 0 to 7. And really the theme here is this idea of safety, survival, belonging. And the core need that we need during this development is that stability, physical care, protection, and trust in our environment and our world, and where we begin to learn nervous system regulation. When these needs become unmet at any point, you will start to see symptoms of anxiety or hypervigilance. So how many of you know the person in the room that knows where everything is as soon as they walk in? They know where all the people are sitting. They know where the refreshments are. They know how many chairs are in there and how many people are in there, right? They know where the speaker's going to be. They know where the activities are going to happen. And they're watching for the things that don't feel safe. I have a little bit of this hypervigilance in me. I have a friend, dear friend, and we were in a healing circle one time and someone was asking for something or she thought someone needed something and that person said, "Oh, Joni already told me." And she's like, "Oh, of course she does. She notices everything, right?" And she means it with sincere love. Like it's just a part of who I am, but also makes you think, right? Like, why do I know that? And that is part of my nervous system and part of the hypervigilance that I'm still in the process of integrating, right? As I dive deeper into safety and spirituality, that comes together for me a little better. And I'm able to sit with more ease in public space and around other people. Also here, we will see that financial insecurity. We'll see the fear around not having enough and the fear of not being supported. This healing focus in this area really comes into this idea of grounding. I'm sure you've heard of that. If not, you can catch some of my other podcasts on grounding. And this is nervous system repair, nervous system regulation, which the next episode is going to be all about nervous system regulation, what state you're in, and how to repair that. So make sure you check back for that. And this will be inner child safety work. And I am sure many of you have heard of the parts work and the inner child work. And this is where we repair safety. And we are able to take those beliefs we have around maybe we're not safe, or other people are not safe, or the world is not safe, and reconcile that and remember that we are safe, that we're always supported. And I want to break this down for you a little more. So we're going to break this down into the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual, right? So what this looks like in the root chakra and shows up as symptoms for you. So you can start to kind of take note of if you have these symptoms. And then at the end, there will be some processes, to help restore. So physically, this looks like fatigue. This looks like back pain. This looks like adrenal issues. This looks like elimination problems. So that's constipation or bladder issues, things like that. What comes up emotionally when there is overproduction in this area or underproduction in this area, so the energy is just not balanced, is fear, anxiety, and again, like I talked about, that feeling unsafe and the feeling of being disconnected from others and disconnected from yourself. In our mindset, that looks like survival. So we're doing the things for survival. We do and that really means you're looking at your decisions and the way that you proceed through life in a state of survival. So guarded, reserved, hoarding, things like that. This looks like that constant in your head about money worries. And again, like we talked about earlier, that hypervigilant state. So your brain is always calculating the things that are happening around you. And it may take more intention for you to be settle in and feel safe in spaces, especially new spaces with new people. And this disconnection piece is the spiritual piece, right? And that is disconnection from that earth energy, which is really, I know it sounds woo, but it is a very important frequency. And like me, you might really realize that nothing is really by accident, right? So the earth really is vibrating at a vibration that makes inhabitation by humans possible, right? And it not only makes it possible, it actually helps heal us and keep us in this natural state of wholeness and healing. And it will feel like disconnection from your body. So these people often have body symptoms and they don't even realize it, and they just keep putting things in to change that body symptom instead of slowing down to feel what it is that their body really needs. And this also looks like a lack of grounding. So people will live in their head, live in that logic, and again, feel flighty, feel anxious. So let's look. What does this look like in business, right? So this will look like inconsistent income flow. It will look like survival. It will look like maybe even your needs aren't being met in your business. This will look like fear of investing into your business or fear of investing any of your money into something outside of your control. This will also look like undercharging. So it shows up kind of funny sometimes, right? In relationships, this may look like attracting chaotic or unstable partners. This may look like the codependency, right? Not trusting yourself to be safe. So you look to others to help you feel safe and belong, and that you belong. And for, frankly, a lot of people with an underactive root chakra, like we're actually looking for other people to also regulate our nervous system. Kind of more general feelings of life is that feeling like you're on edge. A lot of people are waiting for that other foot to drop, right? You hear that statement. Or when something bad happens, they're waiting for the next thing. Like always things happen in threes, right? Like we have these things that we say. It also looks like jumpiness. So if you're that person that startles easy when other people walk into the room and surprise you, or this looks like also not being really grounded on a path. And this isn't to say that we're not free to choose where we're going and how we do it. It's just this idea that, like, the people, and I do this sometimes too, it's if something's not working out quickly, we quickly switch to something else because we're afraid maybe that we're doing something wrong, or we're afraid that, it's not going to work out. And when you get under those things, it's really that fear that you're making a mistake or you are the mistake. And so we just keep trying something new really often, jumping to the next thing. Great question for you to ponder here, and maybe later take out your journal for this, is where am I operating from survival instead of trust? Another question that I often am really exploring this year and really dropped in for me last year is I do make a lot of decisions from this survival place still. And where can I make decisions from love, from joy, from ease, instead of from the fear or the hard or, fear of mistakes, things like that. All right, we're going to jump up. So around your belly button, a little below it, is the sacral chakra. This is the sacral plexus. These are the lower spinal nerves. So they regulate your reproductive organs, your bladder, and this is where we can switch to parasympathetic activation. So you hear a lot about nervous system regulation, and we hear a lot about flight or fight. And so if you can imagine, this happens in these lower chakras. So really thinking of these as a foundation, right, of building this safety and building this awareness and this confidence in these lower chakras so that we can fully develop and feel safe in the upper chakras of the heart space and the intuition and the connection to source. There's a bridge there between the groundedness and that spirit sense. In general, out of balance here, you'll feel pelvic tension. We have these hormonal swings. So a lot of people start to feel symptoms when their cycle is changing. I should say women, right? Men cycle in 1 day. We cycle in 28. And a few years ago, I really had this drop in for me that symptoms, you're not doing anything wrong, right? It's just an invitation. I fully believe our body and the messages are invitations to make changes. However, so when we're having premenstrual symptoms or around perimenopause and menopause, when these swings of hormones come or these swings of emotions come, it's really inviting us to look into these places of us that we are still not feeling safe. We feel emotional overwhelm here in the sacral area, and also disassociation continues to happen here. The development around this area, you can think of the development 7 to 14 years old. So this part of you is developing in that 7 to 14-year-old developmental stages. When we're looking at what it's telling us, we're really looking at emotions, boundaries, creativity, pleasure. I feel like that's the sacral chakra is really the essence of who you are and how you express it. When this is balanced, we tend to feel like we can express our emotions, that we have permission to actually feel them and express them. We have permission to explore. We have permission to enjoy. We have permission to live life receiving pleasure, right? Like the beauty in things, and really allows us to open up to that creativity, whatever it is that you like to do, whether that's dancing or art or creating learning modules for people. This all comes from this place, or the invitation is to allow it to come from that place rather than our head. And it comes with much more ease and joy if we're able to do that. The disconnection, the dissociation here would be that interpersonal, right? It's going to be with other people because we interact with people with emotions, right? And so if we don't have emotional regulation, we are going to be missing that point of connection. And I'd be remiss if I don't talk a bit about that pleasure and sexuality linked here a bit, because this is really where our foundations about healthy sexuality come from. And again, being able to express it, being able to feel it, being able to engage safely. When our needs are unmet here, developmentally, 7 to 14, we start to feel shame. We start to dampen down our emotions, I'll give you something to cry about statements, and the statements that we start to hide because we recognize they influence other people. Codependency also shows up here, as you can imagine, when we're talking about our emotions and emotional regulation. If things are out of balance here, we lean on other people to help us regulate our emotions. And so when the sacral chakra is out of balance, we'll also see those creativity blocks, right? A huge part of who we are as humans is expression through creativity. And as we grow, we're often praised for things that aren't that. Now, there's people that are praised for their creativity, and then, there's people that are not. And so you may fall in the other camp as you were praised. But even then, if you're not measuring up, right, then when this becomes unbalanced, there will be creativity blocks. These are the people that sit down to write their novel and they can't get it out. These are people that want to paint and be an artist and they sit at the easel and they stare at the blank thing, or they are ripping it up, right? Or this may just be even the lack of interest in doing these creative things. A mentor of mine and a coach of mine over the years, she often gets her clients to finger paint. And this is one of those childlike experiences. The sacral really likes that childlike creativity to feel safe without pressure and just expression of how you're feeling and, what's moving through you creatively. So what does this look like in business? This might look like, again, overgiving in that codependent way. This might look like burnout because you are not allowing that creative energy to run through you and from you. So you are forcing things a lot to happen. You'll start to resent your work. You won't be finding joy in it. You won't have joy in serving and joy in offering to help people. Anybody resonate with any of this stuff yet? I mean, I know that it's hard because it's a podcast, but really, that's like, I really invite you into seeing where you resonate or resemble these remarks, right? Because it's going to give you a big clue on meeting your inner needs, meeting those needs of you that will balance these centers and allow more flow of energy. And when we talk about flow of energy, I'm just going to lay this down right now. The flow of energy is all kinds of energy, right? Wealth is energy. Money is energy. Health is energy. Wellness is energy. Abundance of any kind is just energy. Ease, grace, they're a type of energy that if you balance these energy centers, if you meet these needs, you will be able to have more access. They're always available to us. And the only reason we're not in flow or not in alignment is we're blocking it somehow. And so that's why understanding as we go through the chakra system where you feel the most resistance or aggravation or frustration in your life and seeing where it fits. And then you can see where you can spend some energy on some healing work. So healing in the sacral chakra. We're still in that second chakra. This is that place above the root chakra. It's, around your belly button. And how you heal this is super fun. It's having fun. It's doing things that bring you pleasure. It's doing things that are playful. It's processing your emotions. It's boundary work. And rabbit hole here for boundaries. I just really invite people always in to look at boundaries as something we create for ourselves to help us know where we want to spend our energy and engage. Boundaries are not for other people to follow. We make boundaries for ourselves so that we know, again, where we want to engage. Breaking this down a little bit into that physical, emotional, mental, spiritual places and the issues that you might see in your physical body. If this chakra is overactive or underbalanced, you might see reproductive issues. You might have pelvic pain. You might have hormonal balance. You may have sexual addiction. And the emotional things that might be coming up for you are guilt, shame, apathy, right? Who here has had stages of apathy in their life? I will raise my hand. This emotional numbness. I didn't even know that I was empathic until I was like 35 years old when someone was like, you do know that you're an empath, right? And I was like, oh, not really. Because I don't think very many people or myself would have described me as that before that stage of my life. I was very logical, very stoic. I would not allow my feelings to come up very often. So this emotional numbness happens when the sacral chakra needs have not been met. And overworking here will look like overreactivity. So overly emotional, right? Reacting, not responding. And then we look higher, right? Like this mental piece. What is the mental piece of the sacral chakra? It will look like that creativity block, lack of creativity, overthinking, forcing things to happen, and emotional overwhelm, which usually leads to either breakdown or just shoving it down, right? This, that idea of spacing off instead of feeling what you need to feel. Maybe that's eating, maybe that's watching long times of Netflix or reading books. Nothing wrong with any of that, as long as it's not your ostriching plan to hide from your emotions. And even then, it's fine. It's not right or wrong. It's just an invitation to see if that's really where you want to be spending your energy. And spiritually, we start to, underactive here is that disconnection from your emotions, right? But that disconnects us from love, that disconnects us from joy. And we have this blocked flow of that ease, right? So when we are creative, we can produce with ease. When that is blocked, everything feels like a push. It feels hard. We'll break this down to business, relationships, life. You lose that creative spark. How many times have you just felt exhausted? You have this idea maybe of what you should, which I really hate to even say that word, but you have a little bit of pull towards how to serve your people, and there's just no creative spark. It's kind of like pulling up that blank sheet in a piece of paper and not being able to write because there's nothing there. In that disconnection, that interpersonal disconnection, we may also start to rely on offers that we are just putting together from both that place of survival, and also they feel out of alignment, they feel boring, they feel disconnected because we're not able to emotionally connect on that level with our clients and what they really need and show up in that space for them when we're not able to hold it for ourselves. In relationships, this will show up as that overgiving. This will show up as boundary issues. Again, boundaries for yourself. And this will be that emotional codependency. So statements like, you make me mad, which we do all the time, right? Or so-and-so is frustrating to me when they do this. And while those things can be true and we really feel them, because this is all a process, this is all a dance, all a flow of energy, if we can't separate when another person is feeling sad and when we are feeling sad, then we don't get to choose how we are feeling because we're just feeling what the other people are feeling. And I find this a lot in helpers and healers, and especially those that are empathic, right? When we can feel other people's emotions, it often just, this enmeshment happens without our recognition if we are not intentional about those boundaries of what's mine and what's yours. And in general speaking, we lose touch with that play, that pleasure, that passion, and we move back into survival, right? And that happens to so many of us. And I've been there. Everybody I know has been there. And I'm still there sometimes, but it is in my sight to really move towards play, to move towards pleasure, to move towards those things that fill me with joy. And so I dance. And I say that as a joke, but one of the most pleasurable things for the sacral area is movement of that area, right? So move those hips, move those butts, move those legs, and move that energy. It gets stagnant. So play, have fun, find joy, and dance. Reflective question here is, am I creating from desire or obligation? All right, moving on up. Solar plexus. Many people know where this is. It's a funny thing about the chakra system because I think a lot of people might not know the rest of them, but a lot of people know where the solar plexus is. And it's even referenced, like when you get punched in the gut or something like that, like during sports and stuff, people know that that is like the seat of who they are. And it just is the punch in the gut kind of feeling there. So where is this, right? This is that area around under your rib cage between your belly button. And interesting enough, I have forgotten to kind of say this about the rest of the chakras, but in this area, the light that we can perceive is really this yellow color, so much like the sun, right? And the energy here has that frequency of the yellow light. There is a nerve plexus here and a cardiovascular plexus here, and it is the celiac plexus. So this is in our stomach. And this is where a lot of our autonomic nervous system ganglia reside. And as you can imagine, being in this area, this is where our digestive system is regulated. This is the gut-brain axis. This is where the pancreas or blood sugar regulation is. And when this area is out of balance, so listen closely here, because I think many people have some of these issues somewhere in their body, is digestive issues, right? So whether this be IBS, whether this be like overgrowth in there. So you have those digestive issues of like flatulence, or you have blood sugar regulation problems. You can look at this solar plexus area and what is happening here. The development stage here is that 14 to 21. So I think that's super interesting to think of this seat of who you are, right? The I am of who you are is what really resides here. This is your identity. This is your willpower. This is your personal power spot. This is your autonomy. And to think about this is developing, right? In those teenage years. So it's no wonder as teenagers are so experimental. We're supposed to be figuring out what is happening, right? We're supposed to be differentiating ourselves from the things that make us unique, the things that make us authentic during this time. And yeah, like with permission to explore, we're going to make, quote unquote mistakes, right? I don't really believe in mistakes anymore, but we're going to make choices that our parents don't want us to make. We're going to make choices that we have consequences. And that's how we learn, right? That's how we learn what path we want to live, right? Do we like these consequences, or would we rather follow this like ease and joy? And I don't mean that as we're acquiescing to what other people want for us, which happens, right? It is such a challenge as a parent, right? Even right now, I have 13 and 15-year-old, and there are things that I say on accident when I'm not being intentional, or when I'm triggered, that will, it's kind of like with a puppy or with a horse or something, we're kind of breaking them. And my wish is to allow more safe exploration, right? To some more guidance in that safe exploration. But there's just things that get you, right? Like the talking back and the things. And I digress here, but some of the stories are sometimes fun, right? What we're searching for, what we really need for this to be in balance is confidence, is freedom, and is that validation of our self-worth, right? And validation is very tricky. As teenagers, we're really looking at it from outside of us. We're looking for others to give it. And as adults, some of us will start to learn about our experiences for ourselves, validating our emotions for ourselves by way of being able to see contrast. But even seeking self-validation, internal validation, is a bit of not just trusting that your authentic self is the perfect version of you. It's still a bit in that ego piece. So when we talk about ego, this is where that sits. This teenage years are that ego development, right? Like it is so evident in young men, especially, but also the vanity we see in a lot of teenage girls as they start to mature. Again, it's all good, right? It all leads us to a path. It all shows us, gives us reflection, gives us contrast of who we really are. This is the confidence in making decisions. This is where we feel our independence. When this is out of balance, we start to have that imposter syndrome. And as many of you listeners, you are the givers, you are the helpers, many of you are entrepreneurs serving and coaching and helping other people make change. And so inevitably, when this is happening for us, we are going to have imposter syndrome along the way, right? And so when we see it, then we can again be thankful for the contrast. Thank you for the message, and realize that space, that solar plexus area, that yellow power energy needs some massaging, needs a little love, needs a little focus and attention to remember it. this looks like control issues, let me tell you, raise your hand again, especially for those of us that are embarking on this, owning our own businesses. And that's not necessarily all the case. It's just what I can really relate to right now is this idea that we need to control everything, right? We need to fix the things. We need to control the things. We need to be sure of the outcome before we step forward. And as we're developing this space of us, it is, there's a certain amount about it that we keep hidden within, and maybe always we do. You know, my clients and I, we can all resemble this, right? There's pieces that we are still hiding. And that doesn't mean shouting from the rooftops, everything, but there's pieces of our own self that we still put away. And that is the fear of being seen and the fear of the judgment of who we really are, that authentic self, that authentic, powerful self. And part of this is the ego in here when this is out of balance. It's just the ego showing up to keep us safe and being different, which, you know, now it's double bind because every teenager wants to be different than the other person, but they want to be exactly the same as well. And so we get these binds in here, and we, again, though, we get to look at the ego as keeping us safe, and we get to witness it, and then we get to learn from it. We get to learn from the message. What is this telling me? And how this shows up in business is this idea of playing small, the perfectionism, right? And the indecision. So how many of you have started something and it should take an hour and you're still working on it 4 hours later? How many of you never then even publish what you just said or what you just spent hours doing because of that perfectionism piece? Or don't even start, right? So for me, that was a big one for a while, is not even getting started. I not even making the decision to start things. The balanced version of this sacral plexus chakra, that area that's above your belly button, this yellow golden light, is bringing us back to self-trust, to sovereignty, and to that inner leadership. And physically, this will show up as gut issues, as ulcers, as fatigue, and again, blood sugar regulation. I kind of mentioned all of those earlier. And emotionally, we're going to see this. We're going to see insecurity. We're going to see people pleasing. We're going to see resentment. And that mental mindset, again, is that indecision, the perfectionism, that imposter syndrome. And interesting, I think many of you have thought of those things before, but also in this area, when it is unbalanced, we will start to see lack of direction. We will see we're not sure of our purpose, or we're not confident that our purpose is where we're supposed to head. And sometimes it's just misinterpreting our purpose as doing, and really it's that seat back into being, and being in that source higher self and out of that ego self. So some other ways that shows up in business are the undercharging, the hiding that I was talking to, the playing small. And in relationships, here will be the power struggle, right? The right, wrong, proving you're right, wrong. And it matters who's right, wrong. It matters who did the dishes how many times. It matters who has more responsibility in different areas. And this is where we start to build resentment. And this idea, the control piece, leads us to that over responsibility. Like it's up to us. Some general life principles we'll start to see when this is out of balance is this procrastination, or the opposite, the overworking, the overproducing until burnout, right? Because that is where we are finding the value is in the doing that I was talking about a second ago. So a great question here for reflection is, where am I giving my power away? And when you talk about giving power away, that can be going to people, that can be going to thoughts. Lots and lots of times it's our thoughts, right? And our fears, and to other people. So where am I giving my power away? Oh, we're moving on up to that heart chakra, that place of love, the place where we give and receive love. And I'm sure most of you can figure out this is where our actual physiological heart lives as well. And you can also imagine all of the nervous plexus here, our vagus nerve is here, and that the cardiovascular systems are here, but so many nerves here, right? It's a very important part of our body. It's got our lungs, it's got our heart. Can need those. We think about the regulation here, where you think about heart rate, we think about our immune system. We do continue to work on the emotional regulation here as well. There's in this area, we often hold grief, right, in our lungs, and we hold that heartache in our heart, obviously. And this is heart rate, is a real great expression of how we're feeling. So interesting here, development, right? So all of these things are present, but this is when we start to solidify these areas, and this is where we can start to access really start to access what it means and the blocks that we are holding there, and we have access to that information. And this is that 21 to 28 years old. In this area, the real theme here is love. My favorite part in there, right? That juiciness and intimacy. Also resides here is forgiveness and compassion. And as our our solar plexus is really the I am, we continue in this place of love, and there is still, overflow. There's overflow and flow between all of these, but this self-worth piece also resides here. When these needs are unmet here, we start to feel isolation or self-isolation when we're not feeling worthy of. Resentment also still lives here too, and fear. There's that fear of love, that fear of intimacy. You might see this in business as poor client connection, low self-value. So again, that undercharging piece, and either not wanting to be seen or not feeling seen. When we are balanced here, we can have this ease, I guess, in forgiveness, and this ease in self-regulation, and, the giving and the receiving of love, right? Many of us as helpers and healers are overgivers, right? And this comes from the solar plexus, right? A bit of not, of doing it for value so that we're more valuable, but also it's an overcompensation for not being open to receiving. We can see this physically as actual heart issues, lung issues, and we feel this in our back too, with that upper back pain. The upper back is often referral pain from the organs that live in this area of our body. Emotionally, we're going to feel grief. We're going to feel loneliness. We're going to feel resentment. We're going to be guarded. And the mental components, when this chakra is out of balance, the heart chakra, is that self-love, right? It's that self-criticism, that self-judgment, and disconnect from that, the truth that you are love and that you are worthy of receiving love and you are worthy of giving love. And this is, and the spiritual piece here, the heart connects our lower chakras to our upper chakras. It is really this bridge of the foundation of safety and connection to source, and the worthiness of our connection to source. We feel hard, or we are described as hard here. Compassion for other people's circumstances, other people's experiences are hard to see or hard to feel if this is out of balance. How you doing? Holding on? Yeah, we're halfway there, right? A little over halfway. And I do have an epic exercise at the end here to help you with this. So in business, this will look like a lack of connection. This will look like feeling unseen, having a hard time allowing clients in. Like I talked about earlier, energy's all flow. So love is a flow of energy. Money is a flow of energy. Connecting with clients is a flow of energy. And in relationships, I see this many times is this fear of love, right? And it's the fear of being loved and become closed off. And many of the people that are afraid to receive love, you would describe as a loving person. And so it's interesting because these often are still overgivers and they give lots and lots and lots of love. But there is a disconnect here from the proportion of love that they are able to receive. And whether that's from fear or worth, it's, that's where the coach comes in. That's where the reflection and introspection comes in. That's where being able to sit in the space of your heart center and ask why the doors are closed will help you. And that's why the whole reason for this episode is to really allow you to see where and what you're feeling in your body so you can interpret the message and you can move forward more into what you really want instead of in this place of where you don't want to be anymore. In life in general, we can look at this heart center being out of balance when we have a hard time with forgiveness and we have a hard time letting go of the past. And the other in general here, I would really say is we have this idea of, I feel like it's like this know-it-all energy, right? Those late teens and early 20s, we feel like we know it all. And as we learn that we don't, and the more we learn, the more we know we don't know, right? But from our experiences during that time and from when we were younger, we've given meaning to what love means. We've given meaning to what certain actions mean, whether they mean love or not love. And we've also given meaning, or meaning has been imprinted on us as to what love looks like. And I know many people have heard of love languages, right? And I was having this thought the other day about that, really, that possibly, love languages, maybe there's preference there, but I also was coming to this idea that I think that love languages may also be part of our survival strategy or the healing of our wounds that we have. And so I find this with clients a lot when we work on heart opening, is that their idea of how people should love them is getting in the way of them receiving love. Rather, if we can shift that mindset to that we are always receiving love, that everybody's every action is love, and that we receive it as love, right? So their actions might not change, but we're able to open up and receive that anything, any interaction, right, becomes as a way of love in the way that that other person can express, or that other person thinks as love based on their experiences growing up, right? Again, another rabbit hole. So, question here. Where am I withholding love? Where am I withholding it from myself? And where am I withholding it for others, right? So where's the judgment? Where's that lack of forgiveness? Where is, that idea of worth comes up here too. So where am I withholding love from myself or others? Moving up to the throat, and another nervous bundle here in the neck, leads out to the arms, leads down into the chest. The cervical plexus lies here. And this is also a very important area for the vagus nerve branches. And by this time, I think most people that have been doing any kind of healing work have heard of vagal nerve, but if not, it does control our nervous system. Also in here is the endocrine, the thyroid, and our breath still comes from here, right? So this is part of our vocal cords rely on that breath to make sound. So this also regulates our expression. This throat chakra really developmentally sits in that 28 to 35-year-old. We learn authentic relating, right? We learn authentic communication. We learn to use our voice confidently and seed what feels like truth to us. The core need here is to be able to safely express ourselves. It's the idea of being heard. It is the idea of being believed, that idea of speaking our truth, be our authenticity. So we think about our I am and our confidence and our power center, and you connect that with the love through the heart center up to our throat, and we really get that alignment with our purpose and be able to act on it. When this chakra is out of balance, we will see repressed truth. So we don't voice our opinions. We don't voice what we need. We are in fear of judgment here as well. Some people are super quiet and other people nonstop talk, right? Over explainers, over communicators, like they just keep giving you lots and lots of words. In this seat, I also feel like it is an important part of our growth of validation. And often our voice is for ourselves more than it is for other people. So that's validating our own experience for ourselves. And perhaps it's even giving way to some of the need to validate, whether internally or externally, especially these concepts, these higher concepts of right and wrong, which as we connect to that source space, we realize that there's, that it is no longer truth. There are choices, there are things, there's decisions they are decisions and choices we make that just take us down a path. Everything, all the time, one of the biggest things in healing journey is just to know that you're right on track, no matter where you are. And so even if you perceivably are making a wrong choice, it's actually the choice that's going to bring you the most clarity on the way to go, because that's not how you want to feel. That's not where it is. And so you take this other path. And if in this space of healing our throat chakra, as we learn through that at least self-validation or internal knowing, it becomes more of a truth and authenticity and less of the need to validate ourselves in being right or wrong, or other people being right or wrong. When this is out of alignment, when the energy is not flowing here well, we will struggle with, to make it pertinent right now, right? Is we struggle with our messaging. We struggle with producing content for our clients. We struggle with hiding online, right? And this is where the authenticity piece and that struggle, even we still, I think most humans have this place of what we think is appropriate or where we think we look the best. And that's how we want to show up online, which is great. It's amazing. There's no shame, guilt given here. But even when I show up on camera, mostly because I have to look at myself, I still work at that piece of feel my authentic self, but I curl my hair, I put on mascara, I do the things that help me feel myself more. And this differs from what I look like every day on an everyday basis, right? To me. Maybe I look like this exactly the same to everybody every day. I don't know. So just thinking, and as I'm here to give you some practical examples, I can reference myself most easily. My journey, I have spent a lot of my last years in this space of healing this throat chakra, right? This Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disorder of my thyroid, from which I felt really, really tired for a lot of my life. I had a lot of symptoms that I would attribute to this throat chakra, to the Hashimoto's, and to the adrenal fatigue that I was feeling. And I think there was a lot of this repressed truth or this authenticity piece that I didn't even see yet. I have no judgment again. And, if we're able to get clear and look from an observer, we know these contracts, we've signed these contracts with the people that we are around as we are developing, whether that be our parents, our teachers, our friends, right? And it's to bring us closer to the truth of who we are and to bring us closer to that love and source energy, I believe, and our soul purpose. And we've contracted, they're here to help us. And this is really hard sometimes for some of us humans to make this shift, right? That everything is always happening for us. And in some ways we can believe it. And as we start to try it on, then we start to being like, okay, but this happened when I was small, or this happened to me and it's made me this way, right? There's truth to that, right? But again, is it working for you, or is something that happened to you that now we're clinging to the story to validate our experience versus going inward into our authentic self and the truth of our experience? And I think this is one of the most freeing things for me as I have engaged in understanding the body and healing the body, is there was a huge part of me that was disconnected. And I didn't know it at the time. Again, I was doing the best I could. Everybody that was in my life had done the best they could with me too. And that piece is really this like really spiritual piece of me, this really loving piece of me that I didn't see. Gosh, I didn't know I was going to tear myself up, but it's near and dear to my heart. And the more I lean into that authentic truth of who I am, the better I feel. The less symptoms I have, the antibodies go down. Yeah, it took more than just that to get here, right? But I really think that is all also just part of the journey, so that then we can see it when it's time to be revealed. And so, dietary changes, supplements, lifestyle changes, but they've all led me to this point that I can now have a regulated throat chakra energy center here. And I can speak my truth, and I can, in a way, stand up for that truth authentically through communication and education and leadership. Yeah. So, and accepting the parts of me that are of who I used to be, right? Or they're all there. They're like just other parts. I think we're probably, it's our perception of who we are. And we're not really able to see it sometimes until it's time to see it. It's kind of how I can put that across. And so I can see that I can be both smart and I can be loving. I can produce greatly, and I can sit back and receive and be in that being space of who I am. I can understand the science and the quantum sort of way things work, and I can just rest in the faith and the trust of the woo, right? And I really consider woo as just, it's the pieces we can't see, right? And so, that's just a little on my journey through the throat chakra. Of course, as always, it's a journey and I'm still on it. So what does this look like? This looks like clarity with our communication. This looks like full voice, full activation in our voice. This feels like those life missions, those values that feel true. And then we can spread that to ourselves and to other people and just kind of exude it too. When this is unbalanced, again, I kind of alluded to thyroid problems. You got Hashimoto's, you got Graves' disease, you've got sore throats, you've got jaw pain, the TMJ. All of that is in the throat chakra, tension there. We're still in that fear of judgment lives here, repression of our expression, right? So if we think about our emotions being in that sacral chakra and being able to feel them, this is really being able to express them in a way that is true for us. And this over explaining, over talking, and then that is really in that validation vein, right? Like people that are like, yeah, but this, and then they keep on, and that really is the still an imbalance in the validation from the center. Raise my hand on this too, but still in this space again is that leads to overthinking, the talking in circles, always coming back to the yeah, but, and also seated here, which might be super interesting to people, is the ability to listen. So the inability to hear other truth, the inability to hear other perspective also can reside here. All in, again, it's to validate your experience, right? And so if that experience doesn't match with yours, there's still a fear that yours is wrong. Also shows up here is that disconnection still from purpose, and that disconnection from the truth of who we are and the truth of our authenticity, our validation. How that shows up for us in life and business, health, and relationships is these external things are struggling to create. So again, we go back to that sacral chakra of creation. This is the expression of it, right? This is the outward looking piece of that. Difficulty speaking clearly. How many of you know your stuff backwards and forwards, right? You're the expert. Then you show up to talk about it and it just doesn't flow. There's a piece here in validating that what you're saying is the truth or is going to be received or how it's going to make you look. In relationships, this looks a lot like saying yes when you mean no, right? Not being able to express the way you're feeling. And in this repression here is really being silent when you need to speak. And often this shows up in general as just this feeling of feeling invisible and misunderstood and not listened to. Question here for reflection: where am I not letting myself be heard? Whether that's for yourself or for others, where am I not able to speak my truth? Okay, we're on to the sixth. This is third eye. Again, I think a lot of people have heard of this third eye chakra. And this is our intuition, right? This is this area just above our eyes in the middle. Here lies the optic nerve, hypothalamus, and the pituitary gland. This is the center of the HPA axis. So the pineal gland, all of that is centered here behind the third eye energy, or in the third eye energy center. Because again, when we think about the 360 of this actually, the energy center from the back of our head really comes out in sort of a lower place, the focal point of the energy, more occipitable. So you have your knowledge bump there. I don't know how many of you heard that growing up, but if there's a bump on the back of your head, a ridge, as where your spine hooks into the bone, that in our family and a lot of other people that I've talked to, that was, coined the knowledge bump. But it's the intuition, right? That's where a focus of intuition is, on the backside of I shouldn't say the backside, but in descriptive terms, right? Just so you can understand it through the third eye and out the back of your head. So lots of glandular functioning here on how your whole body operates, right? This is the magic of the body. I don't know about you, but when I sit down and I learn something new about hormones or neurotransmitters or how all the systems relate, and then we bring in the idea of spirituality and love and energy, and I'm just in such amazement of how our human body functions, right? And the magic of that is really in this intuition center. So our bodies are like, we think of the woo, right, of intuition, but the amount of information that is synthesized and then the output in this area of our body is just, it's hard to hold. It's so expansive, right? And so as we develop our intuition and be able to sit in this space, it's kind of like that 35 to 42-year-old is where I think the trust of it really comes in. And It's regulating our sleep cycles. It's regulating our pineal gland function, which is the circadian rhythms. It's running our, like when we have the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, we're running our thyroid, we're running our adrenals, we're running our reproduction hormones. Like all of it starts there. When this is out of balance and we're not trusting and we're not making decisions from this place of intuition, we start to get brain fog, we start to get headaches, this insomnia period of our life. Hello, many of us have it. And hello, ladies, like 40-year-old insomnia is, it's different than when we were younger having babies and had up all night. But this type of sleep that awakens and you have a hard time going back to sleep, right? I think there's a huge component there of trusting our intuition. So intuition, insight, wisdom, inner knowingness, this is the center of that energy. This is where we're able to see illusions, right? We're able to see the illusion of fear. We're able to see the illusion of lack. We're able to see the illusion of the human constraint. We start to recognize that we are much more than just these bodies here. We're able to see patterns. We're able to look at ourselves through the lens of the observer and actually process and have this space that we can look at healing from a place of judgment where we've done things wrong. This is where we get to see without our eyes, right? It's like such a cool space to be, because when you sink into it, the actual need for all of the discernment and validation and safety really start to dissolve, because you just can feel it as truth. And as we move into this intuition, it's really this invitation to even take this more into where we can start to see that our energy bodies are much more than our body. Our spiritual bodies are much more than our physical bodies, and that there is this connection to this energy outside of us, this universal energy, the source energy, and we're able to interpret that in different ways. And this takes, like all of these centers, bringing all of these things into balance. Again, it's a journey, it's a practice, it's a willingness, right? So when we're developing this, the needs, like when we have unmet needs, we will move into that place of over-analysis. So anybody heard the term analysis paralysis, right? It's because we're not trusting ourselves. We're not trusting our intuition, and we're out of alignment. And we're not trusting that what we see as the vision is going to be correct. And quite frankly, there is a lot of fear still wrapped up here, right? And that's why I was talking earlier about the foundation of the lower chakras and then the bridge of the heart to the upper chakras is there is this invitation that we're able to be in that trust space, right? Trust in our inner vision. And this is where there's this competition, I think, between the science and the woo. And really, as my journey, I have a doctorate in physical therapy, nutritional therapy, certification, did a lot of work in myofascial release and subconscious belief reprogramming, became a Reiki master and an intuitive coach, right? And there's a lot of certification there, but it's all a journey to lead us to understanding this more quantum space from which there is all the information available to us if we can learn that safety and our need to control it and our validation and our need to have it are the illusion. This gets a bit deep, right? So in business, again, we're looking at strategy hopping, like I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. We're still looking outside of us to have the magic wand to fix everything. We're not trusting our instincts. Oh my gosh, this I even take you like to the simplest things, right? Like I need to go to the bathroom. How many times have you had to just do a simple function? You get the hit, I need to go to the restroom, and you sit at your desk for another 30 or 40 minutes doing work. And, that's like the start back to even our intuition is just listening to the body when it tells you something. Because again, all of the body processes really sit here in this intuition energy in our upper skull. What gets to really open up as we balance the chakra is this, it's developing of that intuition and developing of the trust of that intuition, which leads to super clarity. And again, the place of indecisiveness or the need to make decisions starts to dissolve because we're clear and we have clarity and we're trusting that while there may be contrast, right? But we know that we're on the path and that intuition is going to take us to our next step. And this is that energetic blueprint, that vision mapping that we can see the next step. So again, when out of imbalance, we will see headaches, eye issues, insomnia. In our emotional body, we'll feel confusion, overwhelm, paranoia. This really getting these gifts coming on full line for me a few years ago as I started doing myofascial release. And there was time of some paranoia, right? Like I wondered, I was like, oh, like, do I have a tumor in my pineal gland? Like where are these visions coming from? I see pictures and sometimes the discernment there is challenging for my logic brain because I'm not sure why I see the color purple, or I'm not sure why I'm seeing gears turning when I'm working on a person's body, until I realize that, like, as I look deeper, there's one that's out of alignment and, we can just get that gear shifting. And it's just, the pictures are just the interpretation of the energy. So learning to lean in and trust that and not be paranoid was also, or is still part of my journey, is trusting that those pictures are the answer. Mentally, I talked about this, that analysis paralysis, self-doubt, like really trusting what comes to you. And this space, as we start to massage it, as we start to jump into it, it feels good. And it feels a bit like we're returning back to that space of childhood before you thought your thoughts were right or wrong, right? So it's like this imagination, this fantasy, but when it's out of balance, we stay in the fantasy and we don't have action. So spiritually, as you can imagine, it's blocked intuition, it's distrust of that inner wisdom. It may even be distrust of other people's truth or other people as we start to discern what truth actually feels like and the confidence behind it. How this will show up in business is that second guessing. Am I doing it right? I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to try it this way. This is over planning, right? I am sharing a lot today, and hopefully you guys can resonate with some of this, but oh my gosh. I also had a coach tell me that I was planning to get started planning, right? I'm planning to plan. And it's super interesting, right? And but it's a definite place of being when you are growing and starting a business. And many, I think it's not just me, will resonate with that, but it's a funny planning to plan. In relationships, this will show up as not trusting your instincts and ignoring the things that you know are out of alignment with you. And in life, there's this sense of uncertainty and this sense of, how do you say that? Like lost, right? The path isn't clear. You don't know what steps, and you're waiting for someone to tell you. You're waiting for the expert. You're waiting for the guru. You're waiting for someone else to tell you the next step in your journey. So if you're having any of these symptoms that I talked about before, then sitting in here and asking the question, what is my intuition telling me that I've been ignoring, right? So if you have a headache, what is this telling you? All right, 7th chakra, this is the top of your head. This is where we are connected to something greater. And I think you all know what nervous system part is housed here, but our brain, right? This is the central nervous system. This is the central processing unit of our whole system, and also the cerebral cortex. So this is also the piece of us that receives all the information, makes sense of it, and then produces an output. We're invited here for that connection to source, that divine knowing and surrender. As this starts to develop, you will start to contemplate that meaning of life, your purpose, your spiritual connection, your faith. We're really looking for integration, wholeness, and that embodiment that we are not separate, right? Like we are source energy created from source energy. And so opening up that crown, we get to believe that. And that, again, I was talking about the intuition and the upper chakras. Really, if we can have those foundations of development through the chakra system and our energetic system, then the level for which we believe in safety or lack of safety or fear or lack of love, the best way I can say that is that it sort of dissolves. We can see the illusion. And when we open up our crown chakra, we can feel the illusion, right? When our needs are not met here, we will still feel disconnection. We'll feel disconnection from ourselves in like the spiritual sense. And we will feel disconnection from source. And we will have this, perhaps this is where midlife crises come from a bit too, right? Like this existential dread of what is really true. Like, why are we really here? What is really the purpose? And also when this chakra is out of balance, we have what's called that spiritual bypassing. Connection with our crown chakra invites us to understand still the messages that are happening in our body. We don't get to just not explore that and hide it in our body and just connect to the idea that everything is okay. Because if it's not, right, there is a place that is true. There are instances, I'm sure you've felt that, right? Like, my gosh, the other day I was looking out my office window and I saw a rainbow that was horizontal, right? It was completely across the ridge of a mountain. I'm not even sure I would have been able to see it. However, this mountain still has snow on it. And I could see through the trees partly, and then up on the ridge of the mountain, all of the colors of the rainbow. And in that second, in that instant, there was just like this amazingness, this awe. And those are the times, right? And I believe that invitation is to be in that space most of the time. But there is an invitation to work through all of this messaging to make it to that space versus ignoring our body and the messages and just living in that space. And there's a difference there. When this is off balance, we start to lose our sense of purpose. We, again, are just chasing the next thing. There's no integration. When this is developed and we're this functioning, we have that innate trust that I was talking about. We have that we trust in divine timing, right? We just know, we know our path. We know this path. We can't always see the steps ahead of us all the time, but we understand that even in the downs, that that's just part of our journey and that we get choice to live more in that source space, that love, the joy, the peace, right? We get to be in sacred service. We get to help make miracles. We get to be the vessel through which miracles move. We get to be the vessel in which we can see wholeness, which we can see love. So bringing this back, what the messages that we can see and the symptoms that we're going to see to receive those messages. In physical, we may have sensitivity to light and sound. We have dizziness. We have sleep issues still. It's all the connection to that head space. Again, I talked a bit about disconnection, right? But also in this emotional aspect here is again back to that apathy and that depression, because we are not connected to higher. We have forgotten, right? It's not that we're not. We have forgotten. We've putting blocks in place in that connection to higher self, higher source energy, hopelessness, and it really is that like dread of this is all there is in life, right? And of course, the spiritual disconnection here, right? I mean, it's our connection to source. So if we don't have that open, we are spiritually disconnected. And again, knowing so much about the body systems and the way the body works through my background, there is just such an awe and amazingness to it that I know that there has to be a higher energy just to run our body, and not to mention all the interactions with all the people and nature and the energy of the world and the planet and the universe and the oceans and the moon, right? Like there has to be a energy of one, right? So overall, how will this show up for you? Possibly in business, losing your meaning, losing your purpose, losing your motivation, questioning your path. This is a statement I often use here is, it's not, the how isn't ours to hold. We listen and we receive it, but it's not ours. In relationships, there will be that disconnection again and that loneliness, even when others are around, but you're unable to tap into that more collective energy of one. There may be the crisis of faith as you allow the truth of that source energy to come in, which is much more loving, which is much more inclusive and whole. And there's a lot of us that have associated meaning and imprinted with different variations of what source is, what God is. And that may keep us stuck, right? Stuck in life in these loops of doubt, these loops of overthinking, these doubts of that meaning of life. Question here is, where have I forgotten I am divinely supported, right? Okay, so I know this is long. It's a long one. So hopefully you can stay connected. And now we're going to go through the process that's really going to help us with understanding the messages that your body is sending. And I believe really giving you that information on how it shows up in our body, both developmentally and in those energetic centers, and learning about how there's the foundation of being human with the heart bridge of being more in our spiritual space. All right, this is the RISE process. It is a 4-step process. In the show notes, there will be a link to the worksheet, so you will have that. And yeah, so real quick first here, I'm just going to take you into a little meditation through the chakras so you can get a feel of the energy there. So the invitation to close your eyes. Feel free to pause this if you need to get in your space and it takes you a minute to get where you need to be. And just witness your breath coming in and out of your body. And for that first chakra, the root chakra, this is red energy. This is the energy that connects us to the earth. I often just even imagine and have my clients imagine that roots are growing out under your pelvis, down your legs, down out the bottom of your feet, and just sucking down into the middle of the earth. This is our groundedness. This is our sense of safety, the sense of being held, the sense of belonging, remembering that the space is always available to us no matter where we are. Just feeling that red energy filling up. I am safe. I am supported. I belong. Traveling up into that sacral space. This is orange energy coming out the tops of your hips, up through your belly button, dispersing all around you, this orange energy. I am innocent. I feel. I create. Moving into that sacral plexus, that yellow gold energy in the center of you, above your belly button, below your heart. This is your power. Power is my birthright. Confidence. Moving up into that heart center, heart chakra. Often as green energy. I have experienced this myself and had clients experience this as flowing into green, but flowing into pink light. Traditionally, it's green. Or representationally, in texts and things, it's green. I receive love. I give love. Moving up into that throat chakra, this energy becomes more turquoise in color, perhaps a bit more bluish. I speak my truth. I speak clearly. I feel my truth. I hear my truth. Moving up to that third eye. This is often purple, indigo, energy color, and represented as such. I see clearly. I know. I trust. Moving to the top of the head, the crown chakra. I am connected. I am source as source made me. And staying here, staying in this space, staying in this balance. We're going to check in. You're going to allow some of the things that we talked about today to bubble up within you. Choosing one thing, one important thing that's blocking you from moving forward on your path, perhaps something that's bringing you frustration. And the first step of this rise is to recognize this symptom as a message. So hopefully after today, with all this information, you're able to recognize that this external manifestation of the body, the symptom, this issue is a message. And then we inquire with curiosity. Super important that we go in here super curious from the observer. Where do I feel this in my body? And now it gets interesting here sometimes because we have these general emotions, we have these general feelings of physical ailments that we are dealing with. And sometimes when we feel it in our body, it might be in a different place, right? But this will help us understand why it's happening. So where do I feel this in my body? What does it feel like? Is there another emotion under it? Is there, sometimes you'll feel a hotness or a coldness or a pressure. And then the S in the RISE formula is seek. So we're going to seek the message that's below that feeling. So this is the what. This is what is the message. What are you trying to tell me? What could I learn? What could I see differently? And then the E in the RISE is to energetically clear it, right? And you can use whichever tools are available to you. You can check out, again, my Abundance and Flow community on School will have tools in there, meditations. And when I talk about energetic clear for this, we're also just looking at the development, when it started, where did the belief get created? And so we can use breath work, we can use journaling, we can use visualization, we can use parts work, we can use Reiki, we can get some help, from an intuitive coach or a parts work person or a counselor or anyone that can offer us a mirror and observation. It's one of my very favorite things to do because we know it as truth as soon as it happens. And there's so much awareness and ahas when we can guide ourselves or be guided into these places to understand just what our body's trying to tell us. So perhaps the RISE can just really help you quickly tap in when something's off. So recognizing that when something's off, it's just a message, right? And then we can inquire. We can look in with curiosity. And then we can seek the message. The S, we can seek the message. And the E, we can energetically go in and move this energy. And when we use this RISE, we can begin to recognize that every contrast, every time we feel a contraction, it's really this invitation to expand and grow and move into flow. So I went over a lot of things that you might be experiencing today. So if you might be in that chronic fatigue category, you might feel like you're not getting enough clients coming in your doors. You might feel like some real highs, some real lows. I invite you to not just treat the symptom, but to check in with the message that your body is giving you. Turn your attention inward, use this RISE formula, and really understand the message. So then you can begin to process it and move forward. And if we're able to turn that around, it's super powerful. It gives us the power to create from the inside. And it gives us our power back over our body versus feeling helpless because of the symptoms. And this is true for external issues too, like procrastination or overwhelm, things like that. These are all just messages. And they, in a way, can become your sacred compass forward, right? They will show you the next level of growth for you. They will help you move through that hard time when you're trying to up level. So thank you all for listening. This is, there's so much information in here, and I hope you use it as a reference over and over again. And really, really appreciate you hanging in there and listening. And I am always over here cheering you on as you take action to reclaim your energy. I have created an energetic balance guide and meditation for you to go along with this episode. So as I said, that will be housed in the Abundance and Flow community on School. The links are all in the show notes, so super easy to find. Yeah. And not only are there great resources in that community, we're really building a place for people to hang out and communicate and have a container of safety and a place to show up in your authentic self. Next week, I'm going to be talking about nervous system regulations. And although I've talked about them before, we're going to really talk about it in more depth and welcome you into that for next time. And I hope to see you there.
So amazing. You've reached the end of another episode of Creating Flow. And I want you to know I appreciate your presence and to remind you, knowledge is powerful, but taking action is transformative. I invite you to take the next step to activate your full potential today by scheduling a complimentary 15-minute session with me. A no-obligation chat to identify the messages your body is sending you and how I can not only help you understand these messages, but teach you how to heal your body in order to have an abundance of health and energy in your life and business. Visit the link in the show notes to book a call, and I'll see you next week.